Okay, and hello everybody. How are you all doing? I hope you're doing well. I don't think this is where I want to start this video. Hang on. Nope, we already done this room and the lighting is bad. Maybe not. Definitely not in here. What am I thinking? Never mind, let's just film here. I've been living in this apartment for almost a year now, and prior to this, I was living in a share house. It was supposed to be a temporary situation, but as usual, I overestimated myself and I ended up living there for 2 years where everything was shared. I had my own room. I had, luckily, thankfully, a big old fridge in my room, and then everything else was shared. Thankfully, now I am in my own place with my husband, obviously, and I get to experience what it's like to live in a Japanese apartment. And I'm at the point now where I'm pretty much used to everything that's different from my life back in Belgium, where I had this tiny, old, very old apartment back in Brussels. I'm used to all these differences, so I had to go room by room and make lists of everything that may potentially make this apartment a Japanese style apartment. And this is what I want to talk to you today. This is not an apartment tour at all. I am a regular person with regular decorating skills, a very empty wallet, and this is not a fancy influencer home. This is just our cozy home, and I just want to show you a few features that may potentially be different from anything you've seen before. I also want to compare with you guys wherever you live in the world. Tell me what makes your home different, like what makes it typical to the area you're living in. Let's compare, let's take notes, leave it in the comments. And I'm also thinking about making a separate video about how we found this place, house hunting in Japan. It's a whole thing. It was kind of a backward story for us actually. So if you're interested, leave it in the comments too, and if there are enough requests, I will make that separate video recounting the whole adventure. Just keep in mind that this is just where we live. I haven't cleaned right before this video. There are dishes in the sink. I'll move things around as I film. This is just a home that I am nervously inviting you in. So let's get started. Let's start with that way. Okay, backlighting. This is the LDK area, living, dining, kitchen, and if there's a number in front of those LDK letters, it means that there are separate rooms in the apartment. This is the whole space, everything is connected, kitchen, dining, living. We don't really have a dining space per se, we just eat in front of the TV. For now, would be nice to have a dining room table and actually eat at a table, but I like the open space, I like the light, I like not having a bunch of furniture, which we keep having to buy recently because that's the one downside of this apartment is that there is not much storage. It's just cozy the way it is. So this is what you would typically call a mansion, probably not the mansion that you're picturing in your head right now. Mansion as opposed to apartment, apato, where the walls are very thin, practically made out of paper, and you can hear your neighbors as if they were in the room with you. Here the walls are probably made out of concrete with something thicker. It's definitely more private and more comfortable, more expensive too, but at least I don't hear my neighbors. I occasionally hear a baby crying, but that's about it. For the rest of the video, I'm going to refer to this place as an apartment, but just keep in mind that it's a Japanese style mansion. I keep saying Japanese style, but actually the rooms in this apartment are considered Western style because the floors aren't tatami. It does happen, they still have them around. They're becoming rarer in apartments, but if the building is very old, you'll occasionally see tatami floors. I don't mind them. The care is a little bit more complicated and delicate, I think, but this apartment is Western style. And speaking of building ages, I think this building is a little bit on the older side. I think it's been renovated, but you will see that some features have been around for quite some time. So one of the things that I really like about this apartment is the lights. We have a lot of light here. It was one of the important things when we were house hunting. At least to me, that was something that was at the top of my list. Really needed a lot of sunlight. Don't like dark rooms. So in that sense, I'm very satisfied. We also have a balcony, which I will not show you out of privacy. It's very narrow and became even narrower recently because this place only had one air conditioning unit and we had to install some more to survive the Tokyo summer. So it's even narrower, but I'm hoping that one day I'll get my little gardening corner, hopefully, fingers crossed. And something that was surprising to me and completely different from what I used to do back in Belgium is it's normal to dry your clothes outside. Actually, it's a norm to put your clothes out to dry instead of letting them dry indoors because of the humidity. In Belgium, it was fine. I almost never put out my clothes on the balcony, actually. It was fine to leave your clothes on the rack to dry indoors. But I've tried drying my clothes indoors. They do not dry. They mildew, they smell. So now I always put the laundry outside unless it's raining or the dead of winter, and in that case there is another alternative which I will show you in a minute, but that is one difference. Yeah, so earlier I was speaking of the walls. Thankfully the ceilings here aren't too low, but I have bashed my hands a couple of times in these arches if I'm like dancing around, swinging my arms, or just working out. So that's one thing I have to be careful of. But thankfully the doors, I'm tall if you didn't know, the doors and ceilings are fine. And speaking of walls and stuff, if you're renting an apartment in Japan, mansion, apartment, any type, you're not allowed to drill holes. So if you want to hang up a picture frame or anything, no, don't do it. But some apartments will have little hooks where you can just hang your stuff there. So that's maybe something you didn't know about. Tiny kitchen. Let's see what might be different in here. I'm pretty sure this kitchen size would be considered small in a lot of countries, but for Tokyo, this is actually quite large. Compared to other apartments in Tokyo, I think this is actually a decent amount of preparation space. Usually you either have to cook on top of the stove area or even on top of the sink. You just cover it and like chop on top of it. This is actually fine. Of course, the counters are quite low and I have hit my head a few times, but this is actually pretty typical. We have space on top, space on the bottom. Actually, this is probably the area with the most storage space in the entire apartment. You might be thinking, wait, you have an oven. Why do you need a separate one? Well, my friend, this is a normal cupboard and this is just part of the stove. This is where you cook fish. I have never used it, it scares me. But a lot of Japanese people have like little fish for breakfast, and this is the simplest way to make it in the morning. Maybe one day I'll get to try it. But for now, I like my regular old oven that I bought back at the share house to survive mealtime. And please excuse my dirty stove, but this is something that's different from what I had in Belgium. Do you have this in your country? If this isn't pushed down and the flame is open, it will yell at you. It will beep at you. And it took me so long to figure out why there was a beeping. I thought it was a fire alarm every single time, but it was just this. I didn't have a pot on top of the flame. I think sinks in a lot of countries have a garbage disposal system of some kind. Did not have that back in Belgium and don't have it here in Japan. We do, however, have some kind of big filter that you need to empty. Just picture like a sieve, something like a strainer. You just take it out, replace the bag, clean it, and good as new. You may also have noticed this panel, which is actually just the thermostat for the water. It's connected to the one in the bathroom, which has more features, so I'll talk about it more in there. But even from the kitchen, you can fill up your bath and you can warm up your bath. So that's a nifty little remote panel. Speaking of nifty remote panels, hey Joanne, interphones in Tokyo usually do have a screen these days. Actually, this apartment didn't have an interphone with a screen at first. This is a new feature, very happy about it, more security. Now we can escape the NHK people who come and ask us for money for a feature that we've actually never used nor subscribed to. Remember I mentioned that there's LDK, and if there's a number in front of those letters, those are the rooms that are separate from that area. We have a separate bedroom which I'm not going to show you today because it tends to be the only room where we just throw everything. It's just a normal room where we have our clothes, where we sleep. The one thing that is potentially different is that we have an air conditioning unit that we had to install in there because it gets so hot. Thankfully, the inner construction already existed. We just had to install the actual unit. I think in most European countries, don't have air conditioning at home. It's a standard thing. If it gets hot, you just use a fan, I guess. Actually, moving to Japan, I had a really negative opinion of air conditioning, but now it's cannot live without in the summer. And during winter, it's my heater friend. So that's the only difference. We also have, if you've seen my previous video, office space. So that's actually fun. With these sliding doors, we can make this LDK area bigger or smaller. There's nothing special about the office space, but let's sit down and have a chat about it anyway. I don't think there is anything particular about this room except maybe the air conditioning unit, as I've mentioned before. This is just our office space, shared office space. No major issues, as I've mentioned before. We just have to be respectful of like meeting times and being wary of if one or the other has a Zoom camera on. This room also does have the issue of not having any, like zero storage space, which we had to work around. And I did mention in the last video that it was also like office gym room, and by gym I just mean a few weights in a corner. I do work out in this room because there's the air conditioning, but that's about it. Nothing particular about this room, I think. Just wanted the excuse to sit down for a minute, I think. But let's move on. Who doesn't love a good top orange lighting? But I'm sure you know this already. If you're entering someone's house, and especially if there's a little step, please take off your shoes before entering someone's home. I may have complained a lot about the lack of storage in this apartment, but in terms of shoe storage, we're all good. We're set. Now we're getting into interesting territory with washroom, bathroom, toilet, all separate. A condition of ours when house hunting. In some smaller Tokyo apartments, everything is in one room, meaning the sink, the toilet, and the bathtub or shower, which means there's a big chance that everything is going to get wet because of how things are designed. Japanese bathrooms are designed in a way where if everything gets wet, the ceiling, the walls, the floor, it's okay, but that also means there isn't really much of a separation between what gets wet or not. Hence the house hunting condition. Also, as a new couple living together, a separate toilet was completely necessary. Actually, my bathroom in my little Brussels apartment had everything together, but it wasn't designed in a way where everything could get wet. It was pretty separate, where you were bathing, where the toilet was, and where the sink was. So if the washroom, bathroom, and toilet are separate, this is a typical layout. You'll have the area where you brush your teeth, wash your face, take off your clothes, do your laundry, and of course, wash yourself. And the toilet. I personally think that the sink is particularly big. You could wash a small dog or a baby in there, and that makes for very little counter space for makeup and such. I don't know if that is typical of a Japanese apartment, but that was the case here. Also, remember me mentioning that this building is a little bit on the old side and has had some renovation midway. Well, this is one of them. The faucet thingy broke. Now we have this new one, but it's not connected to anything, so we still have like separate parts type of thing, little quirky things like that. And then of course the top opening washing machine. This is completely new for me when I moved to Japan. I'm used to the ones with the drum that opens right there in the middle. I've heard the top opening ones are more hygienic, but one thing that I don't particularly like about washing machines in general in Japan is that they only wash with cold water. They only have a cold water access point. They don't heat up or anything. And my European mind doesn't feel like my clothes are completely clean. I mean, I know putting them outside has the sun, the UVs, like do a little bit of disinfecting, but at least with my delicates, I do feel the need to do a little bit of hot water pre-washed beforehand in a bucket or something. Maybe that's just me, but that's a point that I've struggled with and I've not yet been able to fully accept / adapt to. Now, of course, the thing that is most different in this apartment compared to anywhere else in the world will be the bathroom. But before we start here, let me show you this little panel right here. This controls the ventilation for the bathroom. Now you might ask, why are there so many functions? Well, because as I've mentioned, in Japanese bathrooms, everything can get wet, which means you need different types of drying functions. This will be on all the time. This is 24 hours. When you're done showering, you want a general ventilation. In winter, maybe you want the room to get a little warmer before you take a shower. This is that one. That was like pre-warm. You can dry your clothes. Like I mentioned, on rainy days, you can't hang out your clothes outside. This is where you would hang your clothes right there. There's actually 2 spaces for that bar. This is not a shower rod. This is to dry your clothes right underneath the ventilation here. This one I'm not too sure. I think it's to extra dry the room, and this is to decide after how many hours you want one of these functions to turn off. You probably don't see how yellow this is, but this is just an example to show how old features still exist in this definitely renovated apartment. This is actually a pretty neat feature, to be honest. It took me forever to figure out what each button did, but once I figured it out, warm room in the winter pre-shower, game changer. So this is the actual shower bathroom, and if you don't know how this works, you have this little separate area where you make sure you are completely clean. You take a normal shower, you soap up, you wash your hair if you have to with the shower here. Sometimes you have little stools and a bucket if you just want to do everything sitting down. And once you're completely clean, if you want, you can have a nice soak in the bath, which you would have prepared earlier with the automatic function probably. You can do it manually too, but this keeps your bath nice and warm. Same panel as in the kitchen. The only different button I think is this one, the call button, which I have pressed by mistake when I was cleaning this unit. It just calls into the kitchen. And again, here this thermostat buttons, you can see that this is pretty old as well. I think out of all the differences between Western homes and Japanese homes, bathrooms are the biggest difference. The ones where you can get everything wet, where you bathe separately from shower to bathtub. And I pretty much used to this. I had a similar situation in the share house, though I wasn't responsible for maintaining it. I wasn't responsible for the cleaning, the ventilation, watching out for mold, spraying anti-mold, clean out the filter, which is a similar situation to the one in the kitchen where you can take it out, remove all the hair, clean out the filter, put it back in. And I actually like that you can reuse bath water, knowing that the person before you has completely washed beforehand. I'd say maybe the only downside is that, of course, because there is no air conditioning, only normal ventilation, it gets so hot in here. I'm filming this in the dead of summer. Let's get out of here. Now, I know you're looking forward to seeing the toilet, but I've got sad news for you and for myself. This toilet has no bidet, no futuristic toilet. It does, however, have the sink function where when you flush, water comes out. And you could wash your hands right here. I personally prefer using the normal sink in the room next door to avoid any potential splashing, but that's personal preference. This is very random for me to like, but I enjoy how easy it is to replace toilet paper here. It's such a simple design, and yet why is this not available in my country? I don't know about you guys, but even though I don't have a futuristic bidet, I'm actually really happy about this simple toilet paper holder. So I guess the toilet situation is a little sad. We did stop and think for a second when we noticed there was no futuristic bidet in this house, but we can do without, and it might get upgraded someday, or we'll upgrade it ourselves, or just we'll be patient until our next apartment, who knows. But for now, those were the things in my little Japanese apartment that are different and just make sense, or don't. Hopefully I didn't leave off anything off my list, but of course if you have questions, don't forget to leave them in the comments. I'm happy to answer. Let me know how it is at your place. Maybe your house has a super specific, unique feature that I had never even heard about. I'm all about learning, so please let me know. I can't believe I'm finishing this video in the actual toilet, but this is the last room I have for you guys, so hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Patreon's a special hub for you for keeping all of this afloat. Don't forget to collect your bonus footage on the website as a reward. Thank you all for still being here, for your support, your kind words, your time. I'm so grateful for every single one of you. And if you're new here, please follow me on other socials. I have so much to say and show. I'll word you all. Bye.